Hey everybody, Rosematter here, and welcome to something that I'm sure you guys have been looking forward to, just like with my first Corpse Party Let's Play, which is the Bad End compilation, where I go back and I get all of the bad ends I didn't get through my original playthrough. So if you guys haven't watched my playthrough of Corpse Party Book of Shadows, go ahead and check it out, but if you are just here for the bad ends, I hope you enjoy, and the next episode will be the final true part of this, which is the prologue, Blood Drive. So that's going to be the next episode because it was quite a bit longer than I was expecting it to be. And that will be the finale for this game. But for now, I hope you guys enjoy this Bad End compilation, and let's get on with it.
乱暴な音に緊張しながら、そっとトイレの中を覗いてみた。しんと張り詰めた空気の女子トイレの中。人の気配は全くしないけれど、奥から3つ目の扉が今動いたような気がする。落ち着け、ナオミ。落ち着け。そう、私は恐ろしいことに気づいていたはずだ。ずっと感じていた違和感。私はこの先の成り行きを、未来の出来事を記憶している。
This was the source of all the bad feelings and uncomfortable premonitions I'd been having. I knew what I was going to find. I remembered this future.
こうなる前に止めなきゃいけなかった。あの未来。私の記憶に焼き付いている。あのイメージは。
This was the future I absolutely had to prevent from coming to pass. The image of what waited for me in this stall was burned into my memory. And it was now a reality.
Seiko! Seiko! 生きてるのね。今助けるから。うっすらと悪い未来が見える。ここで間違っちゃいけない。まだ助けられるかもしれない。
There it was again, a flash of the sad future that awaited us if I made even one wrong move here, but there was still time. I still could save her.
待ってて、今下ろしてあげる。
So we're gonna proceed to do the exact same thing we did last time, which was
高い位置に体がある聖子を助けられるもの。何か
use the bucket. This is the exact mistake that I made the first time I played Corpse Party. That infamous bucket. I love how Naomi's making the same mistake she made before. I hurried out into the hallway to grab the bucket I'd seen sitting on the ground there earlier. If I were to stand on that, I was certain I could reach Seiko's neck even at my height.
バケツの中には何のものかもわからないような腐った肉片とたくさん湧いたウジ虫がびっしりと固まってうごめいていて、吐き気のする光景だった。
Inside the bucket were clumps of an unidentifiable rotting meat crawling with countless maggots. The sight alone was nauseating.
だけど嫌がっている場合じゃない。急がないと聖子が。
But this was no time to be grossed out. Seiko's life was on the line.
私は驚くほど躊躇なくそのバケツを持ち上げた。
I picked up the bucket with surprisingly little hesitation.
中の汚物を廊下にばらまくと、汚いバケツを胸に抱えて聖子の元へと駆け出した。
After dumping its contents onto the ground, I held the dirty bucket tight against my chest and rushed back into the bathroom.
助けるから、絶対。聖子、じっとして。今ロープをほどくからね。裏返したバケツに両足を乗せると、聖子の首元に楽々と手が届いた。
I threw the bucket onto the floor upside down and stepped up onto it like a footstool. Sure enough, this gave me the lift I needed to reach Seiko's neck.
これなら大丈夫。今助けてあげるからね。
This would work. I was going to save her.
聖子の肩に手をかけてロープの結び目を探ろうとした次の瞬間。
I positioned my hand on Seiko's shoulder and began feeling for the knot, but then...
腐っていたバケツの底が抜け、落下した私の体重が聖子の首に負担をかけ、
The bottom of the old rusted bucket had given
簡
way.
単に折れてしまった。
I lost my footing and fell, inadvertently pulling down on Seiko's body. Her thin neck snapped easily.
嘘でしょ。やだ、聖子の首が変な風に曲がっていた。全身の力が抜け、だらりとした手足がつられた体と一緒にゆらゆらと回転している。
Seiko's neck was twisted unnaturally. Her arms and legs hung limply and swayed back and forth with the momentum of my fall. She would struggle no more.
やだ、やだ、やだ。手の中から今の瞬間の感触が消えない。聖子の首を折った。私が殺した。
I could still feel the sensations of that last moment on my hand. I was responsible for this. I broke her neck. I killed Seiko.
頭を抱えてしゃがみ込む。心で否定しても頭の中では分かっていた。これはうっすらと感じていた定められた運命。
I clasped my hands on either side of my head and curled up in a fetal squat. This was all predestined to happen. It was an inescapable fate.
だけど変えることはできたはずなのに。
But somehow I should have been able to change it.
私の中で恐怖と絶望と怒りのような感情が渦巻いて止まらない。分かってたのに。
Fear, despair, and anger were all swirling around inside my head, and I couldn't do a thing to quell them. I knew what was going to happen. I knew it.
止められなかった。なんてこと。私はまた同じことを繰り返してしまったんだ。
But I couldn't stop it. What the hell was wrong with me? I just went through the same motions as before. I made the exact same mistake. And now, Seiko.
綺麗な布じゃないけどありがとう。その思いやりの気持ちなくさないで。ここでは優しさも友情もいたわりも気が緩むとすぐに腐ってしまうから。なんだろう、紙でできた。叩いてもびくともしないなんて、やっぱりここなんか変だよ。あの子だ。どうしよう。見つかったらまずい気がする。
I was caught in his cold, dead hands. He had me by the wrist and absolutely was not letting go. With one sudden, inelegant movement, he grabbed my hair in his other hand and began violently pulling on it with all his might. In that instant, I found myself unable to breathe and unable to speak. The hand that was previously on my wrist was now strangling the life out of me, gripping my neck with an almost inhuman amount of strength. He's just a child. How can he be this strong? For a brief moment, I could feel a cold sensation on my arm. And then, just like that, my entire torso was forced backwards into a decidedly unnatural bend. I heard a sound like the cracking of a huge lobster tail. Sudden jolts of intense pain shot through every last inch of my body like electricity, and sweat began overflowing from every pore. My body, equally uncertain on how to react to levels of pain this severe, responded with intense nausea. Somebody, please. I feel bad. It feels like of all of the bad ends, Mayu's, who's like the sweetest character, or like the most drawn out of everybody's. I don't understand. What's happening to me? Am I dying? How many people were in this room with me? I was feeling the touch of countless hands, and some clearly did not belong to children. Who were these people, and how many of them were holding me down? Yet another hand grabbed my ankle. Like, just when you think it's about to end, it keeps going. Ugh. Poor Mayu. With an even greater force than before, my legs were pulled in opposite directions. Then with a startlingly loud crunch, they snapped right off my hips. Oh, God. Is it gonna keep going? Is it done? My limbs were either gone now or barely still attached. I was like a discarded wishbone, or a toy they had no qualms about breaking. Oh my god, the sound effects are too good. It keeps going, Mayu! Like, did somebody who made this game really not like Mayu? It's like, we're gonna make her suffer the most. Oh, mercifully it's done. Man, oh man. Shinuma, breaking the rust off the key, uncovered a label on its grip. Science lab, staff only. Guess that settles that. Seems like a handy key to have. The loose board is no longer spanning the whole of the floor here. It's unclear what happened to it. Maybe it fell in, or maybe someone took it. Either way, it's no longer possible to continue down the hall from here.
男子ならともかく、私たちには無理だよ。何か捕まるものでもなきゃ。
長い防火ロープでもあれば、 先に俺が渡って支えてやるんだけどな。
The gauze bandages that were used to tie up Nana.
これロープの代わりにならないかな。
Gathered up the loose bandages and handed them to Kishinuma. Kishinuma then obediently pulled them taut in a few places to test their tensile strength.
長さはかなりあるし、何重かに折り返せば簡単には切れそうにねえな。
2本あるし、より合わせてロープみたいにすればもっと丈夫になるよ。
And so we folded both strips of gauze in half, then twisted the two double-ply strips together to form something that resembled a braid. I'd done something similar to this once before when making rope-like decorations for theater costumes, so it didn't prove to be particularly difficult. It almost felt like rope making 101. In 10 minutes' time, presto, we had a do-it-yourself rope in our hands. Granted, it was pretty flimsy compared to the resin ropes you might buy at a home center, but it seemed like it would hold one person's weight just fine.
.まずはロープをどっかに結びつけて固定しねえとな。
そこの教室の机とかどう？
大丈夫かよ。机なんかロープ引っ張ったら動いちまうぞ。
そっか。教卓はちょっとロープの長さが足りないかもしれないし。ロープを結びつけた机を入り口近くに移動させて、それでロープが出る隙間だけ残してドアを閉めれば、机はドアに引っかかって動かないと思います。なるほど。ドアを片側に寄せて二重にしとけば、まず外れることなんてないし、いけるかも。
よし。じゃあまず俺がロープ持って向こう側にジャンプするからな。
気をつけてね。
この距離なら楽勝楽勝。よっおっとビビった。
大丈夫岸沼くん。
ああ、その辺微妙に床板が脆いみてえだから気をつけろよ。よし、鈴本、ロープを伝って順番にこっち来いよ。危ないから一人ずつな。
ナナちゃん、私が先に渡るから後から来れる？はい、できると思います。
どうした？
学生証落としちゃった。篠崎さんにもらった幸子さん人形の切れ端挟んであったのに。
そんなもん後で下の階に拾いに行きゃいいだろう。
ナナちゃん、いいよ、来て。ロープしっかり掴んで気をつけてね。わかりました。
おお。
なんだあいつ。なんかやべえぞ。ナナ
ちゃん、急いでこっちに。
Ah, so she got her legs cut off no matter what. Because she got her legs cut off in the other spot. It's destined to happen, right? No matter, like, if you change fate and go a different way, it's still gonna happen. Because she had those crosses on her thighs. For about as much time as it took a single shiver to run up and down a person's spine, the hallway was completely silent. Then, the moment Nana's foot left the floor on the other end of the hole, there was an abrupt, almost exaggerated spray of blood. The back of the strange, bloody-eyed man's massive hammer had come down hard, roughly splitting through not only the rope, but both of Nana's legs as well. That's right, Kishinuma didn't see that happen, it was only Mayu that saw it. Oh, you were so close, girl. You were so close. You almost made it. More than anything, I wanted to look away. I wanted to look away from those desperate, tear-filled eyes, that shocked, pained expression. Not to mention the sight of Nana's dangling torso with nothing at all left below the thighs.
Oh,
Yoshiki, he's such a good guy. Like, he's still trying to save her, rather than just being like, fuck this, I'm out. Wow. He's such a... he's my favorite character. He's such a good dude. Yoshiki, don't say that. He's gonna be like, okay. Oh man, oh man.
息はしてる。でも気絶してるみたいだな。
その方がいいよ。意識があったらどんなに痛いか。
けど意識がねえってことは体力的にやべってことだろ。なんとかしなきゃな。
He's so good. Like, he just met this girl and he's doing everything he can to help her. And Mayu too, but like Mayu kind of froze up, but she says that she's not as brave as people think she is.
なんとかって、私たちお医者さんじゃないんだよ。こんなひどい怪我、どうしたらいいのか。
消毒液と包帯くらいあんだろ。保健室か理科室か職員室かどっかによ。とにかく俺らでできることしてやんなきゃ。
そうだね。
とりあえずちゃんと休めるとこに移動しようぜ。
Oh.
あいつさっきのどうやってこっちに来たんだよ。
とにかく逃げなきゃ。
Oh, okay. Okay, so here you can either let time run out, or you can go... What does it say here? Try heading right up the stairwell. So we'll try going up the stairwell and see what happens. Oh no, my boy, my boy. The bloody-eyed man raised his right leg, then quickly brought it down on Nana's stomach, pinning her to the ground. Oh, it was Nana. I thought it was Yoshiki that he went after. He seems to be really going after Nana, pinning her to the ground and forcing blood from her wounds. A few stomps later, what looked to be gastric juices began spewing from Nana's mouth, and her momentary consciousness was cut short as she passed out again. This didn't stop the man from continuing his stomping fit, however. He was putting his whole body weight into every blow. I could hear the sound of bones breaking. Nana's chances of survival were lessening with every passing moment, and they weren't good to begin with. What could I do? I wanted to save her somehow, but I couldn't even move. Oh no, Yoshiki's gonna come in, he's gonna try and be the hero, and he's gonna get killed too. Shinama's attempt to save Nana was short-lived. The bloody-eyed man swatted him back like a fly, and he immediately fell through a hole in the floor.
お待たせ。今度はあなたの番よ。お姉ちゃん、遊ぼう?
Oh no, here comes another Mayu death, so this is going to be super long probably. I remember now, this.
ここで死ぬんだ。
This is where I die. Wow. Wow, they didn't draw it out for 5 minutes. I'm shocked. Alright, so what we want to do is go to the science lab. Which will keep them alive for now, but not for long. Science lab door is locked. But we've got the key.
理科室なら確か鍵が。
Use the key.
外れた。
よし、早く中に。
鍵閉めたから。
とりあえずは安全か。でもあのデカブツ、斧みてえの持ってやがったからな。ドアが破られる前にこっちもなんか武器でも探さねえと。
その前にナナちゃんの手当てを。何この匂い。
Oh, that's lovely. So we want to not... I'm going to save first. It's a dead body bound to a chair with wire by both its wrist and ankles. Based on height and uniform, this was most likely a junior high school girl. She seemed to have hot oil poured over her head, burning everything above her chest into a blackened, unidentifiable mess. Oof, what a way to go. The only discernible facial feature is a missing tongue, and that only because its stump is still faintly visible through her broken front teeth. The wire around her wrists and ankles seemed to have really dug into the skin, too, suggesting she put up a hell of a fight before taking her final breath.
この制服、ナナちゃんと同じ。
学生証に写真があるな。武蔵川女子中学校1年6組。天戸屋なり。
なりちゃん。
あ、意識戻ってたのか。
ナナちゃん、見ちゃダメ。これ、なりちゃん。嘘だよ。こんなの。なりちゃん、絶対みんなで脱出するって約束したのに。こんなのって違う。絶対なりちゃんなんかじゃ。しっかりしてナナちゃん。まだ他にも会いたい人が。友達や先輩が。もういないかもしれないよ。
Oh no.
これなんだ?
It was a little girl with matted, oily black hair spilling down her shoulders and over her chest, and she was holding something under her arm. As she drew out the vowel in her sadistically playful question, she triumphantly flourished this object, revealing it to be a human head. It was a girl's head with a perfectly uniform bob framing her face. She looked like the quiet type. Her mouth was hanging half open, trails of blood stained onto her chin. And once again, the tongue was nowhere to be found.
これちはやちゃんって言うんだ。ん？ちはやちゃんは何度も呼んでたよ。
Man, she is so sadistic.
ななちゃん、私死んじゃった。どうして助けに来てくれなかったの？
The girl in the red dress thrust her hand up into Chihiya's neck and was moving her mouth up and down while saying this like a ventriloquist with a dummy. With those words, Nana lapsed back into unconsciousness on Kishinuma's back, never again to awaken. As for me and Kishinuma, we knew the chase was over. There was nothing left to say. We just stood there, petrified at the thought of what was yet to come. Damn, that was messed up. Send Yoshiki after all. Oh, what am I about to do to you, my boy?
これだけ強く結んでおけばほどけないよ。
サンキュー。じゃ、ちょっと降りてくるわ。ロープつうか包帯頼んだぜ。
了解。気をつけてね。何かあったら包帯を引いて合図してください。私たちですぐ引き上げますから。
お前らの力じゃ無理だって。そん時は必死で登るから、ロープだけは離さないでくれよ。うっし。鈴本、地面についたぜ。
大丈夫？どう？何かありそう？
暗くてよくわかんねえけど、今から調べてみる。
Not that this is a pleasant prospect, though it's too dark to see the area clearly. This entire space has an oppressive feel to it. There are a large number of dead bodies scattered throughout the room. Most seem to have died long ago, having decayed into proper skeletons, but a small handful seem fresh, as if they were alive only yesterday. The girl's body. This is one of the ones that seems like a more recent death. So recent, in fact, that there's still a hint of body heat coming off of her. All of her fingers have been cut off, and her tongue seems to have been removed as well. Her student ID name tag is clearly displayed on her jacket. Musa Shigawa Girls Middle School, Hikari Kirigami.
小笠原と同じ学校の制服か。そういや、更衣室で助けた時、光ってこの名前呼んでたっけな。ちくしょう。なんて言やいいんだよ。
God damn it. How the hell do you tell someone their friend is dead? There's something lying on the ground next to her body. It seems to be the glinting object that called attention to this room in the first place. Acquired bottle.
なんだこりゃ。香水かなんかか。あったぜ。なんか水みてえのが入った瓶だった。
登ってこられる？
ああ。上から見るより高くねえみてえだしな。
Is the rope gonna snap or something? He's just gonna be stuck down here forever?
意外と揺れて登りにくいな。
Oh no. After a split second of what seemed almost like weightlessness came a hard slam on the ground. And following momentarily afterward was the other end of the rope. Did the girls let go? And you can see around here that there's other ropes, like other people tried to do the same thing and they didn't make it out. Fortunately, it happened while still fairly low to the ground, resulting in bruises, albeit painful ones, rather than broken bones. I wonder if the two girls already died and maybe that was Sachiko, someone who was holding the rope. Or Nana getting her legs cut off here. No response. Okasara's body was simply going into repeated convulsions, and half her face had been smashed in like a watermelon. Her skull was clearly split wide open.
なんだよ小笠原がどうなってんだよおい鈴本
Oh wow, so it's not gonna be him that's dying. I mean, he's gonna die in here of starvation surrounded by dead bodies. That's fucked up. But
鈴本 おい鈴本どうしたなんなんだよ やめろ誰だクソふざけんじゃねえぞてめえ バカ野郎鈴本諦めんじゃねえ絶対に俺が森重に合わせて
oh, poor Shiki. It's like, you know, he would do something. He'd try to do something if he could. Oh boy.
なんだこりゃ血
Blood spilled from above as if someone were dumping a whole bucket full of it down the hole. And mixed in with this blood were various meat-like chunks of varying shapes and sizes. Chunks that were clearly pieces of a person's body. Damn. Okay, I really don't have time to play around right now. I should get out of here. I decided it would be best to put my yearnings aside and leave the classroom behind. Well, that particular wonder turned out to be nothing at all, it seems. I guess it's all just superstition. I couldn't believe I'd gotten all indignant with Tsukasa over something so trivial. Thinking about it now, it seemed kind of ridiculous. I have to get to bed early, so I'll be ready for tomorrow. With this in mind, I walked towards the classroom door and took one step out in the hall, when suddenly... The door slid shut on its own with incredible force, and my neck was trapped in the narrow opening that remained. Oh boy. I dug my nails into the door, frantically trying to open it back up. But the more I pushed on it, the more it pushed back, further constricting my neck. I was flailing my limbs, twisting and contorting my body, trying everything I could to escape. My neck was clamped tightly. I could feel the blood rushing to my head. I couldn't breathe. Opening my mouth in terror, I stuck my tongue out as if trying to swallow the air. Forcefully shaking my head left and right, I swiveled my body to face the ceiling. That's when I saw the tall, pitch-black silhouette of a person. Silent scream squirmed its way out of my throat, but the door was still pressing onto my neck. I can't, Tsukasa. My vision whirled and I felt a sensation of falling. At the same time, a lukewarm liquid began pouring over my face. What? As I was struggling to make sense of what was happening to me, the door that had been violently crushing my neck quietly slid open. The floor of the schoolhouse came down hard on my head. My vision had gone white and began blurring, but I could see it. I can see my body. I was rolling across the hallway, and there in the doorframe I caught sight of my own headless torso collapsing into a heap on the floor. What just happened? The last thing I saw out of the corner of one bloodshot, unfocusing eye was the familiar figure of the old woman from this morning.
誰かが僕を取り戻して、僕はあんたたちの力になれるかもしれない。
どうする？
ああ。
じゃなくて、この人の頼み聞くかってことをしよう。私たちも友達探してるけど、この人も困ってるみたい。
A decomposed human cranium occupies the top left cubby on the shelf. It mustn't have been easy to make it fit, as there are tiny pieces of flesh and scalp tissue all along the frame. The only standout injury is to the jaw, which is clearly smashed in, giving the face an eerie, unnatural expression. Based on what's left of its facial features and the cut of its hair, this was likely a male middle school student.
年格好からするとこれだと思うけど。
大丈夫か、美月。
Simply standing in the presence of the severed head was turning my stomach. The foul stench of decay was absolutely overpowering. Even in this low light, I could easily see maggots crawling through his eye sockets, his nose, his mouth, all over his skin. They were everywhere.
ダメ、私この匂い。
亡くなってから随分経ってるみたいだな。
これを運ぶの？手で持って？
それはできれば遠慮したい。何か入れ物を探した方が良さそうだな。
これ使えないかな？
Looking closely, something seems to have been shoved into his mouth.
なんか口の奥にあるみたい。
And we don't want to touch it. And we want to investigate again.
年格好からするとこれだと思うけど。
大丈夫か、美月。
ダメ、私この匂い。
亡くなってから随分経ってるみたいだな。
これを運ぶの？手で持って？
さっきのバケツ使ってみるか。このバケツなら入りそうだな。俺がやるよ。美月はバケツを持っていてくれるか。
わかった。ありがとう、フクロイ。
いいさ。
Fukroy used his hands to dig the head out of its cubbyhole and plop it into the bucket. The maggot, sensing something was amiss, suddenly began pouring out of its various sockets and climbing all over their new rusted metal home.
はい、ティッシュ使って。
助かる。もう二度と味わいたくない感触だよ。
持ってきたよ。
君の頭だと思う。受け取ってくれ。
僕の頭だ。僕の顔。こんなに腐ってしまって。なんだこの虫どもは。僕の顔。醜い。
同情するよ。ここには君と同じように亡くなっている人が大勢いる。 なんとか警察に連絡して犯人を逮捕してもらわないと。
お前、哀れんだな。僕をかわいそうな奴だと思ったな。
いや、そういう意味では、不快に感じたなら謝るよ。
僕が惨めだと思ったろ。醜くて不潔だと思ったろ。二度と僕の体には触りたくないと。
袋井、なんか様子が変だよ。
ああ、ここは一旦外へ。
自分がまだ生きているから、だから死人を見下す傲慢なせいじゃ。お前たちもこっち来い。お前たちを奴らに渡してやる。怖いぞ。奴らはとびきり怖いぞ。
Man, talk about no good deed goes unpunished. Trying to help this guy, and now he wants to kill them just because Fukuroi said something wrong.
ここは袋井、袋井、どこ？どっかその辺で気絶してるのかな。あ、そうだ、ろうそく。
My surroundings were far different than I'd expected. I seemed to be in some sort of hallway underground. There was a chill in the air, both literally and figuratively. The smell that wafted about was both musty and gloomy somehow.
袋井、しっかりして。私たちなんかヤバそうなとこに落とされちゃったよ。袋井ってば。袋井。
His eyes were wide open, but he gave no response. Looking a bit closer, I noticed his neck had been severely twisted. He was staring right at me, but his body was facing the other direction. And his half-agape jaw was completely motionless. He wasn't breathing. Well, compared to how he died before, this is a little bit of a mercy. And then there were footsteps.
どうしよう。よかった、人だ。もしかしたら黒崎かトウコたちが。こっち、助けて。こっちに怪我人がいるの。
The footsteps drew closer and closer, and then finally the figure making them came into view.
すみません。私、白南高等学校の生徒で2年の。バカ、何言ってんの。こいつがまともな人間に見えるの。
What the hell is wrong with me? Why am I introducing myself? This is clearly not someone in his right mind.
山本美月って言います。友達が怪我しちゃって、
Well, sometimes with serial killers or with killers, that's a good way to maybe potentially save yourself is to humanize yourself by giving them information about yourself so they see you as a person. But, I mean, obviously this guy is way past that.
斧持って血だらけじゃん。こいつだよ。こいつだ。
He's got an axe or something and he's covered in blood. He's probably the guy who did this to Fukuroi.
私たち気がついたらここにいて、死体とか逃げるのよ。逃げろ。
Run, you dolt. Run. Run, Mitsuki.
助けてください。
But she can't stop herself from just talking. Well, that's it? Damn. Well, that was short and sweet. Maybe not sweet, but compared to some of the drawn-out deaths in here, maybe that was a bit of a mercy kill for both of them.
どうしよう。やばい。絶対やばい。逃げなきゃ。ごめん、袋井。
No, this can't be good. I have to run now. Sorry, Fukuroi. Wasn't expecting him to show up. What?
昔の防空壕か何か。
What is this place? An old air raids shelter or something?
女の子。こんなとこに。
Oh, it's Sachiko, isn't it?
私たちみたいにこの建物に閉じ込められたのかな。
Is that a girl in a place like this? Maybe she got trapped here too, just like us.
そこの子。ここは 危ないから。あなた。お姉ちゃん。お姉ちゃん誰？あの人殺しのおじさんの仲間？違うよ。怖がらないで。
She said it's like she knows who Sachiko is. She's like she has memories of Sachiko.
私もね、逃げてきたんだ。あなた、この血どうしたの？人殺しのおじさんって。わからないの。大きいおじさんに友達が3人殺されて、私だけ助かったの。そう、ひどい目にあったんだね。お姉ちゃん、お友達を探してる途中なんだけど、よかったら一緒に来なよ。ここ危なそうだし、ぶっちゃけ私も一人じゃ怖いしね。うん、ありがとう。
Ugh, man, this is just like with Yuka, just being taken in by the little girl.
地図でもあれば。こっちだよ、お姉ちゃん。
She's gonna take her to the torture room, isn't she? Just like with Yuka. Or no, she took Yuka to the body pit.
ここ、道に詳しいんだね。慣れてるから。え？そういえば、あなたのお名前まだ。篠崎幸子。いったー！何するの？さあ、何をしようかな。なんなの？ここ。
I couldn't decide if it looked more like a pre-war medical facility or a meat processing plant. The stench was overpowering. Not only was the smell of rotting flesh everywhere, but the air was stale and thick. The room seemed to have no ventilation to speak of whatsoever. My eye was first drawn to the blood-spattered table, then to the many other instruments, all stained with dried blood and sprinkled liberally with viscera. And then I saw it in the back of the room. There was definitely more meat processing than medicine going on here. What I saw was literally a pile of human remains, every one of them flayed open or torn apart. It was almost like a stack of discarded butcher scraps.
そこに知り合いでもいた？どれ？返してあげる。一部でよければ。全部吐いて楽になっちゃうといいよ。なんでこんなこと。落ち着いた？じゃあ、始めよう。
There we go. Like I said, the last death is gonna seem just tame in comparison.
何する気なの？やめてよ。みんなそう言うんだ。やめるわけないのにね。おい、薄のろ。そいつを捕まえて。そうだな。吊るせ。
The large man seemed intent on obeying Sachiko's every command. He drew near me slowly and robotically. There was no emotion, no sense of urgency. Just a man walking across the room to do his job, like it or not. I have to run. If he catches me, I'll be...
鬼ごっこ？出口はこっちだよ。たどり着けるかな？来ないでよ！
The man's movements remained slow and evenly paced, but there was only so many places to flee in a room this small. If I got tired before he did, I'd be finished. My only hope was to get out into the hall before that happened. The two of us glared at each other for a few moments from across the dissection table, and then as soon as he made his move, I leaped on top of it. I'd underestimated how slippery the table might be with its thick layer of blood and fat. I quickly spilled off the other side onto the floor. My legs and hindquarters were soaked through with the blood of an untold number of other people, but I didn't have time to think about that. Adrenaline gave me the strength to stick my landing, and I managed to keep running without skipping a beat. I was in the home stretch. For a couple more steps, anyway. Sharp pain suddenly shot through my leg as it touched the ground. I immediately fell into a heap. My right leg was now firmly impaled with thick, sharp metal spikes. I'd been caught in an old-fashioned bear trap. The kind that's got 2 rows of metal sharp teeth lined up on either side, instantaneously snapping shut as soon as any weight is applied in the middle. The thing was designed to catch bears and tigers, so what hope did a human have of escaping it? I swallowed my pain and started grabbing whatever I could get my hands on. Dirt, bones, anything, and chucking it at the encroaching giant. It was the only thing left for me to do. I was out of options. The man's foot came down hard on my left leg. It immediately contorted unnaturally and went limp, and I could see a pointed shard of bone jutting out from a bloody hole in my sock. Next, the man wrapped both my arms in chains. As he pulled on the chains, my leg muscles almost tightened around sharp metal spikes and a compound fracture. The pain was literally unbearable. In my half-unconscious, agony-addled state, I was just barely aware of being raised into the air by my arms on some sort of pulley system. Ooh. Sachiko began approaching me with a broken-off shard of an earthenware pot in her hands. No, God, no, 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 no. Ooh, they're gonna go into detail with this one, aren't they? An intense pain shot through my entire face. An undulated, primal scream escaped my mouth unwittingly, as if I were throwing up blood. But not a living soul was around to hear it. There was absolutely no way for me to resist anymore. All I could do was lie limply, strung up along the wall, and feel my skin getting peeled away. Sometime amongst the throbbing, shooting, burning, electric agony coursing through every nerve ending, overseen by the girl's sneer, I lost consciousness. The very last thing I saw before lapsing into eternal slumber was probably Sachiko wearing her skin. Was a familiar strip of skin being flapped about merrily in Sachiko's hands. It was my own face, perfectly flayed from my head, staring back at me with blank eye and flanked by Sachiko's overly delighted grin. Oof, oof, that one was rough.
Ah, 幻覚じゃないみたいだな。 幻覚じゃないみたいだな。幻覚じゃないみたいだな。
Oh, here we go.
Mayu, 行かないと。Mayuを探しに。
で、起きて。
And we know because this is a more Shige bad end and 100% darkening, this is probably going to be extra fucked.
Mayu. いや、もっと幼い。
Mayu. No. It's a much younger voice. Who is it?
お兄ちゃん、起きて。
ここは。
おはよう、お兄ちゃん。ここはね、私のおもちゃ箱。
The young girl thrust her face so close to mine that our noses practically touched. She was smiling from ear to ear. She looked to be in about first or second grade, with long black hair and a clean, cute, almost dainty countenance. After my brief impression, however, I quickly turned my head away. It was uncomfortably close, literally breathing down my neck. And her breath. Must be weird to be on the other side. He's used to scaring little girls like Yuka, and now the little girl's scaring him. It smelled of blood, of death and decay, and fatty oils and smoke. It smelled of chemicals and antiseptic. It was a very, very unpleasant potpourri.
誰だ君は。
嬉しくなっちゃう。なんだこれはって聞かないんだね。ここに来た人はみんなまず驚いて泣き出すのに。
The little girl began backing away from me, her shoulders still shaking in a soundless chuckle. I knew exactly what she meant. It would be entirely reasonable to ask what's going on here. Even at a glance, I could tell this room was not good. The floors and walls were caked in blood as thick as mud. Buckets of body parts were strewn all about, and eviscerated corpses were stacked everywhere. And that was just what I could see at a glance. As for me, I was bound to a chair against one of the walls, not with ropes, but with chains.
私の名前は篠崎幸子。
俺をどうするつもりだ。殺すのか。
どうしよっかな。これから考える。先にこれで遊ぶから。
That's probably Mayu, isn't it? Just as she said the word else, she brought her hand down on the nearby table in a slapping motion, and it made contact with someone. It was a girl, bound by her hands and feet, and Sachiko's slap was aimed squarely at her thigh. Her uniform suggested she was in high school, and she was wearing glasses, giving her a rather stern, serious appearance. Okay, not Mayu. I could hear the sound of chattering teeth and see her chest rising and falling rapidly and erratically, suggesting she was paralyzed with fear.
名前はね、浦部恵美さん。
The sound of her own name being read aloud from her student ID name tag, the girl let out a single whimper.
やめて、お願い、ダメー。お姉ちゃんは今からとびきり痛いことをされます。惨めったらしい顔や命乞いをして見せてくださいね。やだ。冗談だよね。だって私何も。
That's the problem with this game, is these people, for the most part, they haven't done anything wrong.
うるさい。気が散る。
Sachiko swung her hand downward into Emi's face. I realized only after impact that there was a scalpel in it. A sloppy, uncontrolled incision was made from the corner of her mouth all the way to her ear. Ugh.
なんてね。ごめんね、痛かった？本気じゃないからまだあまり痛がらないで。これからもっと痛くなるのよ。
Sachiko produced a pair of durable sewing scissors from a rollaway shelf nearby and began expertly cutting all the way up Emmy's school uniform. Morishiki's like, oh, I'm kind of liking this. Then she set down the scissors and produced a full-sized farming sickle in their place. It looked well-worn, with soil and rust sticking liberally to the blade. After brandishing it for a moment, Sachiko positioned it over Emmy's abdomen. This is going to be a really drawn-out one, isn't it? Ugh.
目が覚めるかどうか自分で確かめろ。
Sachiko slowly shifted her focus from Emmy's abdomen to the area just below her ribcage. Emmy's body began spasming, her spinal muscles contracting in a decidedly unnatural manner. Gasps and screams mixed with sounds of vomit and incontinence.
いい顔になってきたね。できるじゃないか。それだよ、それ。
Without even wiping the drool from her mouth, Sachiko tossed the sickle aside and simply began digging into Emmy's wounds with her bare hands. The sound of tiny hands manipulating internal organs was disgustingly similar to that of sopping wet rags squelching spilt oatmeal off a hardware floor. God damn, these descriptions are just too much. The noises escaping Emmy's mouth didn't even sound like they were coming from a human being anymore. I could see her face in profile now, and despite the gastric juices and vomit and blood and contortions of unbearable agony, it wasn't a disagreeable sight. I knew it! I knew he was going to enjoy this. Oh my god, he's like, this is like the ultimate beauty, is just seeing someone and like, the ultimate vulnerability. Ugh. This was a girl not far from death. She was trying her hardest to fight it, but the facts were the facts. She was going to die, and she knew it. Against this fate, she was completely and utterly helpless. She was doomed already, in both body and soul. This hapless struggle had a certain sensual quality to it. No, it was even purer than that. This was a truly beautiful sight. It's like, Morshig and Kazami have a kind of similar things where, well, with Kazami, his thing is when someone's close to death, they're at their most honest, and I think Morishige believes that in some way, or he thinks people at their most vulnerable are also their most beautiful. Sachiko's gonna look over and be like, oh god, like, I thought I was fucked up. Or she knows. Sachiko, who had at this point buried her head into Emmy's exposed organs, withdrew it and directed this question at me, her mouth still full of flesh. Maybe she'll keep him alive because she finds him interesting. Everything from her nose down was dyed red and dripping with blood. She swallowed whatever she'd bitten out of Emmy's insides, then turned to face me. Not just face me, actually, but stare at me, stare into me, with unwavering, unblinking eyes. I suddenly became aware of my own erratic breathing. It wasn't fear, though, but an almost animalistic reaction. It was coarse and primal, and I'd unconsciously thrust my chest forward toward Emmy. Oh, you're so fucked, dude. I think I may have been smiling. Oh, God. Don't be ridiculous. It's like she's making fun of me. She shouldn't even have to ask. Wow. Wow. Wow, that was... Whew. I think Sachiko probably kept him alive because she probably... a little bit of a kindred spirit in him. Oh my god, that was awful. Ooh, something hit me hard right in the back of the head. I began descending face first towards the ground. It felt like I was falling in slow motion, though. The ground just kept coming, yet for some reason I couldn't even put my hands out to break the fall. It was like I was being slowly swept toward a wall by a giant wave. My glasses fell from my face, and I distinctly remember watching them roll around. Mitsuki's panicked screams brought me back to reality. Suddenly, I remembered what was happening. She and I had pursued Emi Urabe from the pool back into the school building and found her quickly enough. Oh, okay, so this is what happened after they went after them when they were with Morishige. Unfortunately, she was already dead. Her head had been smashed open on the ground like a roasted chestnut. Who could have done such a thing, we thought. And like it or not, it seemed I'd now learned the answer. Mitsuki was inconsolable, understandably, but after some doing, I finally managed to drag her away from Urabe's remains. We just begun walking back toward the school entranceway, well, when I got struck from behind and found myself careening toward the floor. I was losing focus, but could still make out the pool of blood spilling from my head, accompanied by a sound reminiscent of a leaky faucet. And unfortunately, I could also make out the vague form of a man standing over me, raising whatever he'd hit me with into the air for another strike. I instinctively shielded my head with my right arm and felt every nerve ending and every muscle in it twist unnaturally as the blunt object came down. Mitsuki's tomboyish face looked uncharacteristically wrinkled and puffy, with tears streaming down both cheeks. Or maybe it was just my blurry vision.
Mitsuki!
Aw, poor Fukori seems like a good guy. Seems kind of like, Kishinama in a way, just like wanting to protect people, even as he's dying. Tsuki's sobbing screams and frantic footsteps began receding into the distance. This made me feel a little better. At least she'd be safe, I thought. It took only moments for my vision to go completely dark, but then I had taken a hammer to the head. Still, considering what I'd just been through, I expected to be unconscious by now, but I wasn't. I could feel every part of my body clearly. I kind of wish I couldn't, considering. I was pretty sure I could still move, at least for the moment, so I decided to do my part. With my uncrushed left arm, I reached out blindly, felt my attacker's leg as he began turning to pursue Mitsuki, and grabbed on tight. Oh man, hero. Hero. Wow. Good guy, good guy. Mitsuki was important to me. I could tell there was a little something. I could tell he had some feelings for her. Was I still alive? I couldn't even count the number of broken bones I'd suffered, and I could still feel every one of them. Yeah, for him to just die that way would have been, it would have been better. At least then he could be dead and not, like, suffering still. He's probably in the playroom. My head, my arms, my ribs, every part of me was throbbing with agony. No one part of my body hurt worse or more than the other. Every injury was unbearable. Oh, that's right. That's right, Kazami. You killed Mitsuki, didn't you? Because he said about how she was defiant until the end and refused to show him her fear. Someone was next to me, down on one knee, head right at my ear from the sound of it. A young man, probably around my age. I couldn't see a thing at this point, not even vague shapes, but the voice addressing me sounded somehow familiar. I felt this was someone I could trust.
Yamamoto.
Oh, I wonder if Kazami went after her specifically because Fukori told him to help her. Oh boy. I feel he was gonna probably kill her anyway, but... Even without seeing his face, I could tell he was sneering when he said this. Then in the next instant, I felt something hot bore into my abdomen. That was the knife he took from the delinquent dude. I'm guessing anyway.
ここじゃ死んでも痛みは消えないらしいけどな。
なんせ。
どうでもいいだろ。お前はもう死ぬ。
Oh, what was that thing Kazami said at the end? He's like, it doesn't matter if the school kills people or I kill people. Mitsuki, run. Now, Kazami likes that. He likes chasing after the rabbits. We know this from Yuka. Which way? Ooh, okay, let's save. Okay, so go to the second floor. His expression never once changed. He was like some kind of twisted life-size doll with one face. No doubt the face he'd been wearing when he killed me. The last face I'd ever see. What could I do? What options did I have? Alright, the alcohol lamp. But there's two choices here, so let's save first. So let's light the lamp. Fire, I have to light the wick. With adrenaline's help, I managed to get the matchbox out of my bag, withdraw a match, and even unsuccessfully strike it a few times, all in an instant. Finally, I got a flame, but it wasn't fast enough. The expressionless giant's hammer struck me full force in my right knee. I had nothing left to lose at this point, so I just threw the alcohol lamp haphazardly. It struck the expressionless man's raised hammer and shattered. A sizable amount of methanol spilled from the shards all over his face and chest, and there, thankfully, it burst right into flames. The man's entire torso was immediately engulfed. Damn, with Mitsuki, she was like the only one who actually managed to do something to him. The hammer fell from his hand. I did it. Burn slowly, you bastard. It's sad knowing that this is like completely pointless, but... His flaming hand grabbed my wrist. I could feel my skin instantly blistering, and then, mere moments later, my whole uniform went up. Oh, well, that happened. Girl, well, you should have hobbled away. I know he, like, busted her knee. She's not running, but... Alright. The fumes my uniform was giving off couldn't be good for me. I could feel every fiber melting into my skin. It was charring me to the bone. Tongues of flame were licking my neck. I could feel my ears burning. I think it even reached my hair. It just wouldn't go out. No matter how much I shook my head, it just kept climbing higher and higher. And then I felt something else on my face. His other hand? It was dry and cracked. Was this what I got for resisting so much? My vision quickly brightened. Everything was tinted white now. It felt like the back of my head had just struck the floor. And I was fairly certain he'd just broken my nose, crushed it flat. I could feel blood flying everywhere. Not enough to douse the fire, though, of course, if blood can even do that. I didn't have the luxury of slipping away into unconsciousness. There was no time for that.
男の手が落ちていたハンマーを拾い
Oof.
その焼けた鉄の金槌の部分を
Before I had a chance, the expressionless man had picked up his fallen hammer and had begun pressing the red-hot steel into my face. Oh, the sounds. Oof. Makes me want some bacon. The sound it made was like dropping a raw egg into a preheated frying pan, and the searing pain I felt was far worse than anything I'd yet experienced. Half of my field of vision instantly went out like a spent light bulb. I could no longer see out of one eye at all. Ugh, probably because it had been completely burnt out of its socket. At this point, I could feel my skin bubbling. But then, the oddest thing happened. I caught a scent of burning flesh in the air through my battered and flattened nose, and it smelled good. The giant man, still completely expressionless despite being even more engulfed in flames than I was, readied his hammer for another strike. The skin on my face was melting away. But he showed no sympathy, no emotion of any kind. He just raised that hammer as if he were on a singular mission. He was aiming right between my eyes, and then he swung down with all his might. What's going on? Something smells really good. It was the same sort of smell one might catch while walking past a ramen stand. You know, I am pretty hungry. Did she have part of her flesh burned off? Because she said in the last one that her burning flesh smelled good. Who's that? It's a girl's voice, and it sounds like she's crying. Oh, it's her friend being burned. Oh, wait, this was the, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't she in the science lab or something and she had, like, acid poured on her face? She was tied up and had acid poured on her face? I remember one of the girls was tied up in, like, the science lab and she had, like, her face was burned off. What was happening to her? My mind had been in a rather hazy state, but this poor girl's terrified screams, as if someone were tearing her heart out, brought me back to reality. I realized my hands and feet were bound to a chair, and I was facing another young girl who was similarly bound and writhing in pain. She was wearing a school uniform I didn't recognize, so she must have been brought here from some other junior or senior high school. Were it not for the uniform and the voice, I might have had a tough time determining gender, as her face looked neither male nor female, young nor old. It was simply too burned to discern anything at all. From the top of her head down to her neck, and even halfway down her torso, she was thoroughly charred. She'd essentially been browned and virtually all her hair was singed off, not unlike a Peking duck hanging outside a Chinese restaurant. Her skin was thoroughly cracked, with bits of pink flesh oozing through here and there. And her eyes looked blank, cloudy, and watery, like the bottom of an order of sunny-side-up eggs. Only her teeth remained relatively intact. Oh, stop bringing food into this. Like, I'm hungry, but now I'm kind of not hungry at the same time. I have no idea how much time passed after that. For a while, the only real sounds were her chair rattling as she shook and her murmurs of agony. Then, all that stopped and the girl fell silent. Considering where she'd been burned, I suspected her lungs must have given out in the end. Though really, it could have been any of a number of things. My mind was a blank slate. I was beginning to lose my grip on reality, and may have even laughed a little. I was in a home ec classroom, maybe, a science lab, and all around me were arms, legs, heads, and other body parts, all simmering in pots and pans. None of it seemed real. It was like I was watching some bad horror movie on TV, except there was odor and heat, and both were really getting to me. I was getting nauseous, but not from the smell. It was instead from the thought that this aroma of human flesh boiling and frying was making me hungry. As I fought to hold back my fear and hunger-induced vomit, I suddenly sensed a pair of eyes coldly staring at me. I looked in the direction from which I'd felt the sensation, and saw before me a little girl in a red dress, just standing and watching. The little girl lifted a frying pan from a nearby gas burner and brandished it in her right hand. Steam rose from the hot pan and I could see bubbling oil splattering all along its surface. I could see the expression on her face clearly now, mischievous, hungry, and positively jubilant, without even a trace of sympathy or remorse. Oh, just that sizzling. At least that one wasn't as drawn out. Leaves it to the imagination. What's going on?
意識が
Am I fainting? I couldn't move any part of my body. I just fallen completely limp, and my vision had gone black. I felt like I was being swallowed up by the darkness, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. It was seeping into every part of me. Big brother, help.
暗いな。誰か来たらあそこに来ても本当に誰か入ってきたら怖いな。早く出よっと。どうしよう。何か取っ手の代わりになるようなものがあれば。他にもさ、ここにいると危険かも。早く逃げなきゃ。こんな他の方法を探そう。こんな石、他の方法を探そう。この鍵を使える場所なんてこの部屋にあったかな。なんだろう、意識が苦しいよ、お兄ちゃん。
I couldn't move any part of my body. I just fallen completely limp, and my vision had gone black. Felt like I was being swallowed. Okay, so this is the same darkening as what happened before, but hopefully this means that this is a separate bad ending. There we go! We did it! We got the prologue. Blood Drive chapter is now playable. Alright, so there we go. An interesting medley of bad ends from the somewhat tame to absolutely horrifying. So I hope you guys enjoyed that really sick, messed up compilation of bad ends. And like I said, next week's episode will be the finale with Blood Drive having finally been unlocked, so we are going to go ahead and check that out. And that'll be it for this playthrough of Corpse Party Book of Shadows, so I hope you're looking forward to that, so stay tuned next week for that. Thank you so much for watching this Bad End compilation, and I will hopefully see you in the next one. Until then, bye. Special shoutouts to my top tier patrons: Nana, Sparky, Dumbass Loser, Tequila Mockingbird, Puncake G, Derek Nickel, Harry Gazif, Asborn Kennedy, and Icognito.